What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the world's #1 e-commerce podcast, Modern Commerce. I'm one of your hosts, Roger Emmer, and I'm here again as usual, and as always with my co-host Brent Choate. What's up?
What's up, dude?
Just chilling. And Doug Barnett. What's up?
Hello, hello.
I like it. That's 2 weeks in a row. The same one.
Found my groove.
It's going to be a trademark, guys. Well, welcome back to the show, listeners. We are excited, and I think we have some pretty cool stuff to talk about. We had a little bit of a debate about this at lunch, so let's see if the gloves come off for the show, for the entertainment.
The problem is the gloves come off is Brant is so tall and his standing reach is probably 6 to 8 inches longer than mine. I don't know if I want that fight.
Yeah. Well, listeners, one thing that I did not tell Brant and Doug about at lunch was a new segment I want to test out on the show.
Oh, good. I love surprises.
This could flop. I don't know. Maybe we'll edit it out. I might be the only one that participates, but here's what it's called. I don't have a good name, but here's what we're going to do. Doug, what was the last thing you bought from an ad online? Do you remember? Okay, what was the last thing you bought online?
My computer monitor.
Really?
That was a long time
That
ago.
was a long time ago.
It's like February, maybe.
I don't believe you, dude. There's got to be something you bought. No? Okay. Well, listeners, it's not going very well so far.
I'm looking through my Amazon right now, and it's filled with our office snacks.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Some baked lays in there.
Oh.
The last thing I bought, though, is less exciting. It was a bunch of cups.
Like, we're talking
Like
glassware?
for the kitchen?
Just kitchen. Yep.
Plastic
cups.
Okay. And
All right.
are you satisfied with your purchase?
I've had these cups in my life for probably 20 years.
Okay. So this is a return purchase.
This
is good. I would say that's pretty good. Okay. Who wants to hear what I bought?
Well, what hour?
Okay, so I'm gonna just ignore that one. That was a dig. Okay, there's a lot in here actually. This one's one of my favorites. This was a TikTok thing. Display Technologies VisiFast 12 16-ounce pack of 2 beverage organizer for your fridge with pusher glide.
Are you going to share the way your fridge looks post-purchase?
Should
with
I'll
with
put
the
a video
listeners?
in. This
That'd be
kind of
good.
makes it look like your fridge is like at the gas station, like it pushes the drinks forward.
It's like an inventory system, right? Like it's like last in, last out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you drink diet soda.
Yeah.
I'm the only one here
You
that
don't have
believes
to
that
reach back
aspartame.
in the fridge, you know?
Yeah, aspartame drinks go bad.
Yeah.
So it's a good system.
Um,
Here's the other problem. This is the reason that I can't get on board. I couldn't for our house. If we filled a fridge with drinks, we would never drink them before they all went bad.
I feel like you guys you are always drinking soda though.
I don't drink it at home.
Yeah, I only really drink it during work.
Okay. Maybe we need it for the work fridge.
Yep.
Probably.
It's a good idea.
And then I actually bought something from an ad, and it was from our friends at Pillow Cube.
Oh yeah.
Pillow Cube is a friend of ours, friend of the show, and we've been chatting with them. And then I think it was on Facebook. I saw one of their ads, and I bought their crossover pillow. So Pillow Cube is designed for side sleepers, but this one has like a weird crevice for your head if you want to sleep on your back.
If I had a vote,
Does not look like a traditional pillow.
It probably would be my next online purchase. It probably is going to be my next online purchase.
They got me. It was 50% off on clearance. They have
That's
a
a good
V2
deal.
coming out.
Dang.
Anyways, all right. Should we leave that in or cut it out? What do you guys think?
How about we change the name of this segment to "What did Roger buy online this week?"
God, it's really hard. Got to try new things. You never know. Sometimes it doesn't work. All right. Well, we're gonna just jump right in here, and I thought we'd start out with a little bit of follow up from last week. There's been a lot of drama about the gram in the last week since we spoke, and when we got on the show last week, Adam Mosseri, the CEO of Instagram, had gotten online. We saw it on Twitter. He posted a video and said, "Hey, there's all these changes. We're testing some things. People are pissed, but basically we're not going to roll it back. So get used to it. It took what, like 24 hours,
Maybe 48.
48 hours. And I think can we say definitively it started by the Kardashians?
Or maybe it was finished by the Kardashians.
Seems influenced by.
Very influenced. They posted a thing that said "Make Instagram Great Again," I think. And then all of a sudden, everything got walked back, pretty much 100%. So the new version that they were testing is gone. They stopped recommending and said that they were going to kind of work on the algorithm. So, Brant, you're the product guy here. Why do you think they did this? We had a lot of discussion around user feedback and stuff like that last week. And what's your take? What's your read on the play here?
I think it's a PR move. Basically, I think they can kind of calm people in the short term while still kind of moving forward with what they really want to do in the background. And I think, partially you have to put things out there to see how they're going to work.
Yep.
And it was clear that their algorithm wasn't really well tuned.
Mm-hmm.
People were complaining about getting, too many irrelevant things. And if you're going to make a change like that, where you start injecting content that people didn't necessarily ask for, it has to be really, really well targeted for it to land. So I think they're going to go back and try and figure that out and roll it out eventually.
Doug, I think that you were the only one of the three of us that had the new version of Instagram, and you had it for a little while. I remember you showed me it.
Well, I'm kind of a chief influencer of the group.
Yeah. What did you think? Was it bad? Was it good? Did you like it?
It's just really hard for me to probably weigh in on like my preference because I just don't use social media. I haven't had a Facebook account or an Instagram account for 5-6 years.
I don't believe you. Pull up his phone.
I
want to see the screen time on TikTok.
I have an account for work, but Facebook and Instagram, I don't have a personal account.
Mm-hmm.
So what it felt like was a unfinished product. That's what it felt like to me, where they were trying to figure out how to jam reels, hard posts, ads all together in like this one feed. And the scrolling motion was definitely awkward and didn't feel supernatural. But I think they're going to work through that. I'm sure they have lots and lots and lots of people working on it already.
Mm.
So,
yeah. One thing I thought was interesting, I read an article with Adam, with Casey Newton. And Adam actually said this a couple times. It actually seemed like the data suggested that it was actually just a bad design of the app. Like, he didn't go into specifics, but he did mention that a couple times in the article, and was pointing to that as maybe the reason why they pulled it back, not just because people were complaining. I don't know, maybe a PR move, but I thought that was kind of an interesting thing he kept saying.
No, I think that it's actually, I think a lot of people look at something like that and they're like, okay, well, it's one screen. You have 2 or 3 people sit in front of a computer and design it.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, you have like a small government that has already been formed inside of Facebook. And there's
a small government?
Well, just in comparison to the US government. But like, you have to go around and play politics, and it's not just about, hey, what's best for the users.
Yep.
You have to go deal with hundreds of people's egos, and every little part of that screen is owned by some little mini organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have their own reasons for wanting things to be the way they are. And it's not, unless you have a really truly visionary CEO in the realm of the thing that you're talking about. So if Mark Zuckerberg was known as a designer, I think there's a world where he sits down all by himself and comes up with this masterful design. But sans having that, which Facebook doesn't have and is not known for, they're not known for design. You just have to have a lot of people kind of on the ground fight for something, and you end up with design by committee, which doesn't normally work.
Let alone who knows how many external teams that had nothing to do with design weighed in, such as legal and compliance and accessibility and all the other things that happen at companies the size of Meta.
Yeah, I think, you guys are probably right. There's probably a lot of that happened. One thought I had, Brant, I'm curious on your take on this. So they basically, it seems like about 1% of the users got this version, and they say they picked them by random. Is there a version of this? And curious on your take if this is a dumb idea, but instead of just randomly saying, hey, we want 100,000 users on this or a million users, allowing users to opt in and making it feel exclusive. So, like putting up a prompt and saying, be the very first to test Instagram, the new version of Instagram. And then people kind of feel like they have some, like, oh, this is a really cool thing. Do you think that would have made a difference? And have you ever like tested a product in that way? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think that if you have people opt in, that can definitely work, and it's definitely used by certain companies. I think when you're a company as large as Instagram or Facebook or Meta or whatever they're called these days, like the reality is that you have so many of these things going on. In some of them are big like this, and some of them are small, but there's probably at any given time 1,000 different tests running. And so if you have to have people opt into all of them, you're
Mm.
just not going to get the data that you need. Um, you also have the problem of self-selection. So you want to get a actual true representation of your user base and not just the people that are interested in the feature.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. So you could end up with skewed results either way.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, how this unfolds. This is a strategic retreat, like you said, Brant. I think they are still planning on pushing this way. Um, I think they think it's the vision of the future, but they're also having external pressures to do so from competition. So it's going to be fun to play out. We'll keep our eye on it, and maybe you'll get some more takes from us in the future. Okay, so the main thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today, we've actually been talking about this as a group for a little while now. This article is a little bit old, but it was on TechCrunch. And the headline says a Google exec suggests Instagram and TikTok are eating into Google's core products, search and maps. Now, when I first read this, I'm going to be honest, maybe I'm a boomer here. It didn't make sense to me how people like, I was like, I'm searching. Why would I go to TikTok or Instagram to search for things? Like, I understand the user behavior of learning things and maybe bookmarking it for use in the future. But if I want something like right now, um, it doesn't really feel like TikTok or Instagram are the place I'm going to go. But maybe the younger generation is, and I think he actually mentions that some of the younger generation, this is the behavior pattern. But let's start there. Like, is this a behavior pattern that either of you guys have found yourself doing? If so, how are you doing it? And are you finding it effective? Doug, what do you think?
The first thing that I can point to that I use a social app for search is recipes. And if I want to cook something almost exclusively now, I don't go to Google, I don't go to YouTube, I don't search for a website that has recipes. I just go to TikTok and I type in the type of food that I want to make, even as broad as like Chinese food,
Hmm.
steaks, whatever, potatoes, and I can refine those searches. And I very, very normally get very good results of something that I want to cook. And then, not just that I want to cook, but probably have some type of very normal person, non executive chef that is cooking something that I know that I can probably live up to that level of cooking in my kitchen. I do that almost exclusively.
Hmm.
I think about Google and search. Really, what did Google replace? The phone book, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that was almost like a skeuomorphic, like, okay, this was the thing of the past. We need a new thing in the future. And it's taken lots of shapes from there. But I wonder if the search engines of the future are a lot more categorical. For example, if I want to search for products, where do I go?
Amazon.
I go to Amazon. If I want to search for recipes, where do I go? I go to TikTok. And maybe that in the future, it's not, there's one place where I go search for one thing, it is there. I have a go-to list of places, and when I don't know, maybe the default is still back to a search engine like Google. Um, but maybe categorical search is the way things are moving in the future, or even today.
Yeah. Brent, what about you?
Yeah, I definitely use it for certain things. I think this pattern has existed for a while. If if I think about like 2009, 2010, Google actually used to have, and other services existed, but Google used to have a blog search. And if I wanted anything that was opinion based, I would actually move towards looking at blogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of shifted over time, and that's kind of bled out into YouTube now, and it's
Yep.
TikTok and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But I kind of think about it like this: there are a set of things that Google is really great for. If you're trying to find answers about what I would consider to be objective facts, Google is probably the best way for you to get those things the fastest. But if you're talking about any other thing that is opinion based, the best thing, whatever, recipes, vacation spot, whatever it is, I think that being able to go and consume video now, where you can actually see and kind of get all of the, um, you know, all of the subconscious kind of cues that you have by looking at somebody
Mm-hmm.
help a lot in determining how much value you want to place on their opinion. If you contrast that with, a blog, and essentially, like if I go to Google right now and I say, what is the best Chinese recipe?
Yep.
I'm going to get 10 pages of content marketing.
Yep.
It has no bearing in what any legitimate chef or even home chef would consider to be the best Chinese recipes out there. It's completely flooded by companies and money at this point. Whereas, TikTok has kind of different incentive structures set up.
Yeah. Is that something you think Google could fix? Like, or are they basically just a slave to their own, revenue model where they have to dish up that kind of content on the first couple pages? They could, in theory, figure out what's got real, real chefs or better opinions and choose to serve that up. Do you think, are they just doing it because they're not actually concerned about giving you the best answers and they just want to make money?
I think the reality is that most people don't care, or they can't discern, what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that most of, the opinion based things are kind of contained to a small group of people that are tastemakers. And those tend to be, younger people throughout time. We kind of watch this pattern happen over and over throughout all of generations. The young people come in and kind of have a different take on the world, and they become the tastemakers. And so I think, as like a product person, when you're thinking about this, you do have to kind of wrestle like, okay, well, the Google search results people are generally happy with, let's say like 70% of people are happy with what
Yep.
they find.
Yep.
Then it's a hard pill to swallow to say, well, we're going to try and, cut our legs out from underneath us for the sake of future proofing.
Yep. It kind of begs the question to me, if you're saying like that there's tastemakers who are going to use this new pattern and everyone else doesn't care, like, is this really a threat to Google's business then? If everyone is just going to keep searching on Google and there's this small minority of like innovators, early adopters, is it just basically signaling what's going to come in the future for mass adoption?
Probably a signal today, but we had an experience at lunch today where you searched on TikTok for the best restaurants in the city that we were, and we happened to be sitting in the restaurant that came up first in the search results. And what did you say when that happened?
I said, this is weird. It's creepy.
And then what did you say?
Said it looks cool. There was a nice little video there, showed off some of the appetizers, some of the food.
And then you said, that was not the experience that I had the last time I searched for restaurants.
Yep. So what happened was I have tried this pattern a couple times in the last week just because it's been on my mind. So what happened was a couple days earlier, I was with my family on like a little family vacation. brothers and sisters were there. We're all hanging out, and we all took a night to cook. So I had to cook something, and I've done this a few times in the past where I've just like searched dinner for a crowd or like easy food for a bunch of people. And so I did that on TikTok, and it only served up a few videos, and it seemed like it was only serving up videos that had dinner in a crowd in the description. And there was a couple. There was one about like a lo mein chicken that looked kind of good, but ultimately I didn't end up making anything. So seems a little hit and miss. There's definitely a long ways to go. But for people who are content right now and thinking about this, what do you guys think are some tips that they should keep in mind? Just some of our hypotheses on how to make this content get exposed and, kind of build up a repository. So as more and more people start searching for stuff on TikTok, that they find it.
You getting disparate results depending on the search right now on TikTok is the number one problem that I imagine the engineering team at TikTok is working to improve. And that is what allowed Google to become the company that they are, is their search results became so much more dominant and so much better, and in every way they took over everything. If you remember, it was like a who's who of search engines. It was Yahoo and Ask Jeeves and all those different search engines, and it was just Google after a while, and it was because their search results were the best. So the only way that TikTok's going to get all the way here, or Instagram or YouTube or whoever, is if people trust the results that are coming through when they do the search. And the truth is, Google search sucks now. It does. And I rarely find the things that I'm looking for, and I find myself scrolling deeper and deeper into search results with Google now to try to get past the affiliates. And that is a bad outcome for Google long term. But in the same way we talked about last week, Brant brought this up with Instagram and Facebook, that they are slaves to their next quarter's earnings. That is true for Google as well. And it's very, very difficult to go in and disrupt your core business. And it's right in the vein of this innovator's dilemma. And so if I were, and I am, a business owner that is thinking about how do I get found? What are the ways that I go get found? Well, where do people search for your product or your service? Where are the places of all the places that they could go, where do you think they're going to go? And you actually probably don't need to make different content for each platform. You just need to make sure that that content exists on that platform. You're using the right hashtags, that you are building really high quality content. And I think if these platforms can figure this out and get the search results to be very good, you are going to be very well positioned moving forward as this continues to shift.
Brant, what do you think?
To me, this is like a bit of a sidebar from your question, but the incentive structure for Google, if you think about it, is essentially spin up a website, try and get as many clicks on it as possible for whatever given search terms someone is looking for. You don't have to expose who you are. So what's happening behind the scenes for the sake of ad revenue, do you have these affiliate networks? You basically have people, especially with AI now, mass producing content on any given topic and gaming the SEO and the search algorithm. And Google changes it over time to make this somewhat difficult, but people figure it out. And I think this is particularly nefarious when you think about something like health advice. All the top results for anything you search for regarding your health are all affiliate networks. They're massive public companies that don't really care. They're just not serving you up the best information. If you contrast that with something like TikTok, where you do have accountability in the sense that you want people to follow you, you want them to come back. And even if you don't show your face, you have a profile and you have kind of reason to maintain like authority, and there's consequences, like you can get blocked from the platform and all that kind of stuff. With Google search, it's a little bit harder to kind of, I don't know, maintain that quality. And so I think as far as putting out content on TikTok, um, I think that people, are going to get caught up in all the kind of tricks and tips and
Yep.
gimmicks or whatever. But the reality is just that the great content will be rewarded, and that's built into how they thought about the platform from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a really good link I posted in our Slack. I don't know if you guys saw it yet, but I'm not going to go into it, but I'll post it in the show notes if any of the listeners are curious to check it out. It talks about that content, just creating good content, and all the hacks are basically no one knows, and you just got to put out good stuff. Is the gist.
So on quality content, Raj, I think maybe one kind of way to look at the future of influencer marketing is, I think we were playing around with what this could be called, like connoisseur marketing. But Raj, you said tastemaker marketing. We've talked about tastemakers on the pod already. I recently followed, my wife and I love to go to Vegas for like 2 days. And basically the only reason we like to go there is the food. That's what we go to Vegas for. And the discovery, if you type best restaurant in Las Vegas into Google, this is a classic search that will yield absolutely no good results for you. But I followed this gal on TikTok. That's all she talks about is like the best experiences to have in Vegas. And they're all really cool video. You can see all the different types of experiences that you can have, the food that you can eat, what it looks like, what the ambiance of the restaurant is, the price, how much it really costs, if it's worth it or not. And she does reviews. That tastemaker marketing could be the foundation for very niche search results moving forward, because you actually build trust with your audience, which was the foundation of Google search to begin with, but has been kind of bastardized over time. And there is probably not a way out of this for Google on the search results side. It's going to be very difficult to undo what they've done, just because of they built quite literally the best business in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what paid search was. It was the highest margin, massive revenue. And what are you going to do when you've built the best business in the world of all time? It's very difficult to replace it. So they're probably not going to be able to do that.
Yep.
So things are going to start moving away.
It reminds me of a couple things. Before all this internet stuff, people would go on vacation and they'd buy like a guide. But really if you were the kind of tastemaker type, you didn't want to look at a guide. You wanted to meet a local and like find out what their recommendations were. But the tricky thing I think here, and we've seen this with influencer marketing already, is it's just human nature for people to sell out. Like it doesn't matter what their intentions are. Eventually, most of them will start shilling stuff that they don't care about. So is it just this continual cycle of, kind of finding the new people who are genuine, unique, authentic, versus, the Kardashians or whoever is the biggest at the time and is going to kind of sell whatever makes them money? I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. One thing I do want to just touch on here to answer this question more specifically, here are some things we're testing with our content. I'm not sure if it's totally the right thing, but it kind of makes sense anecdotally. We're posting our descriptions as questions. So when we have a clip, trying to think of like what might someone search for to get this type of content. And then we're using very specific hashtags. I just want Brant to talk about this because I'm going to admit it. I didn't really know this. We were talking about this as a group about a week ago. If you remember this, can you just talk about like there's a purpose for a hashtag for a user so they can search or follow a hashtag, but what is the purpose of a hashtag for the platform, and how many should you be using and stuff like that? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah. So I think this changes a lot over time. So this might be outdated in a month or so. But right now, basically TikTok, if you don't put any hashtags, they do their best and they do pretty well at this, I would say, at finding an audience for you. It's probably what they're world class at. If you put hashtags, it helps them attempt to find that audience for you in a more narrow kind of lane. So if we put digital marketing, it's going to go find people that are, just interested in that, which is what you would expect a hashtag to do. That just hasn't really been true on any other platform in my experience.
So think of the hashtags that are specific to the people you want to target, and don't use too many, right? Because it can kind of confuse it a little bit too.
Yeah, I think 2 or 3.
Not this like wall of hashtags that you sometimes see.
Yep.
So there's some concrete advice. Give it a go. Let us know how it goes if you guys try it. I know Doug's got a meeting, so I'm just gonna try to wrap up here and end with this question. It's the year 2032. Who is the king of search? TikTok, Meta, or Google? Brant, do you want to go?
My bet would be on TikTok. I think that if I think about the problem that they've solved already, they seem miles ahead in terms of being able to match content to users, and they haven't figured out how to apply that to ads yet. But in my mind, if you can do it with content that no one's asking to see, and it is entertainment content, so maybe it's not the most fair comparison, but it's very clear that they have some kind of secret sauce there, and replicating machine learning is almost impossible. I think everyone thinks that, once TikTok figures this out, then Facebook and Google can copy it. But the way machine learning works, you have to basically combine all of these different algorithms in a certain way and in a certain funnel, and you have to have certain data that you choose to feed to it. It's just not an easy thing to copy. And I think that just by that, and then if I think about also like where the world's heading, just with like DALL-E 2, if you haven't seen that, you can basically type in a sentence and it generates a pretty amazing image.
It's cool.
I think that's going to get started. That'll apply to video at some point.
Yep.
You'll have this kind of way that people can go find almost whatever they want, and the platforms that are, visually native and have that built into their culture, I think have a significant advantage.
Doug, what do you think?
This is a very difficult question, but the one thing that Google has succeeded at that no one else has done is successfully financially supporting creators.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, in the same way that Brant is talking about how far ahead TikTok is on kind of an algorithm that serves up content that people want to see, which we've had some experience with our own content over the last few weeks, is not always a given on other platforms. I still think I'm going to bet on Google. They are in first place. I would not rank their team in first place, but it's very difficult to unseat the champ.
Yeah.
And they've got some really big network effects still. They still have the economic engine that's better than anyone else's, including that for creators. And that's that's the most difficult part to create and have it work. That's where most businesses fail, is where the CACs don't pencil. And they pencil very well for Google and for creators there. So that's probably where I'm going to put my bet.
One thing too that I think is interesting to think about is there's this paper that Alex, who created Musical.ly, which became TikTok, wrote up. Is how he thought about this playing out over time. And he thought about this in a very deep way. And it was basically, how do you create an economy similar to like how a government might form? So his thought was, you have something like Instagram, you have something like YouTube. If you go look at the bell curve of the people who make money on those platforms, it's a very small percentage at the top.
Yep.
And his thought was, what does a social platform look like that rewards the middle of the bell curve the most? And that's what TikTok is, and that's how its incentive structures are. And so there's less money to be spread around, but there's more people having success on it than those other platforms. And so I think that's another part of why in the long term, if they can keep that up, those numbers continue to grow for a larger number of people, the more people that could come onto the platform.
Yeah. I think we have a hung jury here, guys. Because I'm going to go with Meta. And that's surprising to me to say that. Maybe I'm too narrow-minded here. I want a US-based company to end up winning here. And Facebook has had a fair share of criticism. They've done a lot of shitty things in the past. I do think that they care deeply about this problem and they're working to solve it. There's some interesting signals. Mark mentioned on their earnings call that Reels usage was up 30% over last quarter. And he reported last quarter that it was 20% of the time that people use on TikTok. Listening to Adam talk and reading a couple of interviews, you could say it's PR speak, but he continues to talk about rewarding small creators. And it's almost like he's warning the big creators, like, guess what? Time's over. And we're shifting to not that we don't want you here, but we want to build up newer creators. And so, yeah, I think I'm going with Meta. I guess we'll see.
I like it.
Should we go $100 10 years from now?
To me, this is kind of a question of like, do you want to live in California or do you want to live in Texas or do you want to live in Europe?
Which one's which?
I'm not going to say.
Oh, okay. All right, guys. We'll end on that. Good show. See you next week.
See ya.